And thank you very much for joining us once again here on PM Express. I have a special show for you tonight, one that affects me personally, and I guess thousands of you out there who may be battling COVID-19. We're going to be looking at the personal stories of survivors in the midst of this pandemic, and we'll also be speaking to those who understand it. What I've realized is everybody experiences COVID-19 differently. It's pretty unique to everybody. We know about the general symptoms, but when you're going through it, you must know what is it that you're feeling or experiencing so you can call for help. That is the purpose of this conversation. You need to hear what others have experienced. So when you are experiencing it, you don't wait till it's too late before you reach out for medical assistance. That's what we're going to go through for you tonight, and many of my colleagues and others who've experienced it will be sharing with us their own personal experiences on the journey to recovery, and those who came very close to tragedy. We'll look at all that. But I want to start with a breakdown of where we are. Listen, COVID is real and it's getting worse by the day. Let's get to the numbers as we know it. The confirmed cases currently stands at 73,003. That's a lot of cases for a country like Ghana. But there was a time when the deaths were not as many. But now it's getting even worse. We'll get to that. There's a sheer number of people who are contracting the virus. The active cases, that is cases that are currently being treated, who have COVID-19, including many of the people I'm going to speak to, some of them in isolation. They are part of this number, 6,938 active cases across the country. Some of these people are in intensive care units right now, battling to survive COVID-19. It could be you. If you don't want you to be part of this list, again, at the end of the show, we'll tell you again, repeat, as if you don't know, the measures you need to take to avoid contracting the virus. And those survivors who we'll talk to will tell you where they believe they possibly contracted the virus also. And it may be one of you who may be in that circumstance as well and ignoring the protocols. Stay with me. We'll go into that shortly. Now, we have 65,000 recovering, so this is good news for the Ghana Health Service, and they look at the numbers in terms of those who have recovered. So overwhelming majority of people who get the virus will recover. That is the good news. But one death is one death too much, and that's where the story begins to turn a bit grim. And the new cases, 675. It is a lot of cases. I mean, this is back in the day we did have the few 10 cases, 15 cases, 100 cases. You know, there was a time we were talking about 200 cases a day and we were alarmed, right? We are now at 675 cases, new cases that we are receiving across the country. Now, this is the number that will make your jaw drop, right? 482. Now, the 482 cases, I want to break it down for you, right? The last time the president gave us an update of the numbers, this was on the 31st of January. We were just a little over 400. Today's the 9th of February. In 9 days, per my calculations, there have been 66 deaths. 66 deaths in 9 days. More than 60 people have died in 9 days of COVID-19. This is indeed no joke, and we'll be looking at that. I want to start with a story from the East COVID-19 treatment facility, where people go to be treated. Unfortunately, and it has to be said because the reality, many also go to East. The overwhelming majority will go to East, get treated by the fantastic, excellent doctors and nurses there. They will survive it. But a few go to East and they don't return. COVID claims its own victims. My colleague Matilda Wamega recently spent a whole day at that facility talking to patients, those who were battling to survive COVID-19. This is her story.
So this is the high dependency unit at the Ga East Hospital. In this room, there are 4 critically ill COVID-19 patients needing the care and assistance of critical nurses who are going every length, who are doing all it takes to make sure these patients are stable and brought out of this unit. So we'll be monitoring what the nurses will be doing and give you all that you need to know for you to have a better understanding, for you to appreciate the message of COVID-19 that has been preached over the months. Inside the high dependency unit of the Ga East Hospital, very critically ill COVID-19 patients are being attended to. 4 patients are battling for a second chance to live. Every beep from these ventilators speaks volume. Some sick person living on, or a life gradually slipping out of time. So what exactly are you doing?
He's on oxygen, and then the system has gone down.
Okay.
So I'm just maintaining it, the level, so that he can take it.
So that he can become stable?
Yeah. So when they bring the other cylinder, then we can put him on it. Okay. The system, this is a central oxygen system. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And the system is down. So you can see here, it's written low oxygen flow. So they are now working on it for the system to respond, and then it will be normal.
Okay, all right. But at this point, he's getting what he needs.
Yeah. For now, so we are bringing a mobile oxygen.
Okay.
Yeah, for him to be on it for now.
Okay. Linda, not her real name, is no longer in the ICU. She's recovering from COVID-19 under very strict supervision. Before she tested positive, she was very mindful of adhering to the safety protocols until she let her guard down at a family gathering.
Well, thank you.
How long have you been here?
If I tell you I can count my days, I'm lying. But just about, I think, almost a week.
Almost a week.
Yes.
But generally, how is the body doing and everything?
Super.
Super.
Yeah.
Getting better.
Better.
How did it happen? Were you not wearing your mask?
At all. It's family. And I think we take it for granted. So I used to call myself the COVID police until the police caught me.
And there's something that she says that is instructive, that we take it for granted. She was the COVID police. And yet, COVID caught her. Do you know why? Because somebody else who possibly was in her own vicinity was not as vigilant in making sure that he or she is protected. And possibly that's the reason why she got it, right? There are many stories like that. And she is in the facility getting treatment. And thankfully, she is a survivor. But of course, there are many sad stories that you've all heard along the line. And joining me right now are a few COVID survivors. Some of them, of course, all my colleagues who've gone through this. Wherever you are tonight, share with us what your own COVID story is. And we would let the world hear it and get a sense of what it is that COVID really is and what it does to you and what you need to do to survive. Because all these survivors did something in terms of the treatment and the vigilance that they had to sort of go through. Israel, he is joining me right now, my colleague. I'm sure you haven't seen him. In the show that precedes PM Express, he does it, right? But he's coming to me from the comfort of his, I say home, but not exactly home, Israel, because where you are and where I'm looking at you from is actually your own personal self-isolation, 4 walls, correct?
Okay, so there's been an update to my situation. I tested negative, and I've since relocated into the main house. So I used to be in the outhouse. I'm no longer in the outhouse. I'm out of isolation.
Great. I mean, so that's a positive story. Also, we made Raymond Aqua. And Raymond, good to see your face, and I see you're doing well. And I read Raymond's story on Facebook when he recounted his story and put a picture up of him in intensive care. Raymond, we thank God for your life. How are you doing?
Well, I am far better now, except that for some reason, I still feel very, very weak. I still feel very much like I have run a marathon with a shorter distance. I try to walk even beyond 2 rooms. So, I mean, I can say I'm still in the recovery process, but it is much slower than I expected and painfully so.
Well, great to hear. We'll hear more of Raymond's. And Raymond will share a personal story when I reached out to you recently, asking you about, give me tips on your own experience so I could see what was happening to my own body. I'll share that because Raymond's answer to my questions to him helped me a great deal because I was taking a lot for granted, although I was COVID positive myself and I was in isolation. Also joining me is my colleague also, Sammy Forsing. And I heard Sammy's story today. It is a heart-wrenching one that should get everybody who is joking with it to take it seriously. Sammy, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Evans.
Great to have you. I mean, you seem very strong.
I'm trying.
Well, thanks for joining me. We'll hear Sammy's story shortly. And of course, the man to guide us through this, because he's a virologist, he's studying this particular virus, knows what he does to you, a human being. I'm sure some of the things we'll share with him might even surprise him, because what I've come to realize is that COVID-19 is not one size fits all. Everybody experiences it in their own unique way. Dr. Michael Owusu, thank you for joining me. He's a virologist with the KCCR in KNUST. Thank you for joining me. Have you tested positive before for COVID?
No, Evans, I screen myself almost once every week because of my work. And fortunately, I'm not positive. Taking all the precautions and being very careful as much as I can. Great to hear that. Let's start with, I want to start with you, Raymond. I guess among the lot, and by the way, I also had COVID. I'm sure you've noticed if you watch PM Express, I've not been here for the last 2 weeks. I recently just came back on Monday because I tested positive for it. And I didn't test it because I had symptoms. I was okay, 100%. I was still exercising, doing my treadmill, lifting weights if I have to, until some other reason got me to test it, right? And then it came up to be positive. I'll share with you as we go on because I interacted with Israel on WhatsApp and Raymond in particular. Raymond, when did you notice that you had a problem? Was it, what caused you to test? Was it because you had symptoms?
Yes, it was that December 23, and I drank coffee in the morning, except that it was particularly a very difficult morning for me. I was not feeling as good as I'm supposed to feel, and the feverish signs started kicking in right from the time I drank the coffee around 7 a.m. So right after SMS, I was hoping that I could go and relax. Then I asked my doctor for an interaction. Then we were chatting consistently about what was happening to me. First, he said I've been doing a lot of academic work, might have been tired, and also from the elections and everything. So he needs me to relax for a couple of hours so that we continue the conversation. But it didn't work. Then he moved from that to say that let's discuss symptoms generally. We did. And from that morning, from that 6 a.m. to almost 3 p.m., it was constant communication over what was happening to me. Then by 6 p.m., he was convinced we should start something connected to COVID because it looks like what I'm saying is almost similar to what he has seen when it comes to how people start their COVID situation.
Describe your exact symptoms you were having that time.
So imagine I was feeling very cold, and that was strange to me because I almost always take a hot bath in the morning. I can't go without that. And even after the bath, I was still feeling very cold. By 8 a.m., I started feeling serious headache too. So serious headache, then feeling cold. By 10 a.m., as if every 2 hours, there's an addition of a similar symptom, more like, feverish conditions, but this one was more intense. By 10 a.m., I was really feeling somewhat weak, very weak. And that's where I got really alarmed because ordinarily, when I get sick, it will be one of these symptoms showing up for a very long time, maybe for the other to add up later on. Then by 3 p.m., I can tell you, I was having all three coming together, very terrible temperature. In fact, at a point in time, I had almost 39 degrees as my temperature. And they were shocked to have seen that when I went to the hospital. But all of this came together. Serious headache, very serious temperature, then general body pains. By 6 p.m., I couldn't move my body. I couldn't get out of bed, and I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, so that is a very interesting, and this is all happening in the space of a few hours, right? So
that's what shocked me. Yeah. Yes,
this is all happened. Sammy Forcing, when did you realize something was wrong with you, and what alerted you to it?
Evans, I think mine was on the 30th of November. I went for a wedding, and when I was making my way back home, I started coughing, and it was not the usual cough where you cough once or twice, but in a minute I'll roughly cough about 18 to 20 times, and then by 4 or 5 hours, it was even more rampant. And the next day I was coughing like 30, 40 times within a minute, and I started feeling the pain in my lungs. I coughed to the point where my lungs were sore, and I was like, no, there's something really wrong. So I had to go to the hospital. I went to Yeboah Hospital, and then they ran all the tests on me, and everything was negative. From typhoid to malaria, everything was negative. And then the doctor said, you need to test for COVID. And that's when I went to test, and then I realized that I was positive.
Okay, so you were having the typical COVID symptoms, right? Coughing, your lungs, the sore throat, etc. Typical COVID.
Yeah, it was a series of symptoms. It started with the coughing, and then the fever kicked in. And when the fever comes, it goes all the way to about 39.3 degrees Celsius, mostly in the night. Mm-hmm. And it got to a point where even paracetamol didn't seem to do the trick for me. So my doctor gave me a different painkiller. And then that will probably bring it down for about 3 hours. The moment it starts wearing off, then the temperature starts rising again. It went on and on for quite a while, a few days, and then the fever was normal. Then I had the worst of all for my case. It was the shortness of breath. It felt like somebody standing on your chest. And a basic thing like just moving from the bedroom to the bathroom to pee, it would take me about 30 to 45 minutes, because the moment I just get out of bed and I stand up, then I start feeling like I've been running for like 30 minutes continuous. It was one really crazy feeling. It was on for quite a number of days before later on I started feeling better.
Yeah, so that was a scary one with the shortness of breath. Israel is almost like me. Israel, I bet you had absolutely no symptoms, correct?
Yeah, I really didn't have any symptoms at all. I just had a slight headache and a slight fever, but that wasn't even before I tested. So before I tested, I really didn't have anything. And so I say yes, I've been largely asymptomatic. I really haven't had I haven't gone through the pain or endured the pain that some of my colleagues have shared. I've been fortunate enough to be able to wake up in the morning and go for my, routine morning exercises, and it's rigorous, or quite rigorous. And I've been able to survive.
In your case, you tested because somebody named you as a contact.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if that person had not named me as a contact, I would have gone about my business as usual. But once I was named and I tested, I had to stay away.
Yeah.
But
I mean, so that is an interesting one because myself, I was not named as a contact. I was completely fine. I was doing my exercises and everything else. And then I had something else to do. And it was a requirement that you test for COVID and other things, right? So
okay.
I did a raft of tests and I forgot about the COVID because I didn't think COVID was the last thing that was going. And then the results came and I said, no, I don't believe this can't be, it's not possible. It's not possible. Did you get that reaction? I doubted the result for a long time when I had the negative, when I had the positive.
I was shocked, and I was shocked more because I thought I had taken really good care of myself. So I was shocked.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the office, I'm the COVID police. I'm the one who's always in the mask. I'm the one who's always on everybody's neck and asking people to wear their mask and stay away from me and all of that. So I was shocked.
Yeah. Let me ask the question to Dr. Michael Owusu. First of all, I mean, we'll talk about the symptoms that Raymond. Let's talk about Raymond's one because it's pretty unique, right? Because within a space of a few hours, his condition has really degenerated from him being in the office and working. By evening, he could not even walk at all, very quickly, within a space of a few hours. Is that normal with COVID?
Yes, Evans. So, we did a study somewhere latter part of last year when we looked at over 72,000 samples, data of people that have come to our facility. And we tried to look at the odds that if somebody has COVID, what kind of symptom the person is going to show. And one of the things we found out was that first was anosmia. If you have a sense of a smell abnormality, you can't smell or even you can't taste, you have 35 times chance of having COVID compared to not having COVID. Then it's followed by sneezing or coughing, runny nose is about 6 times. We have fever, you have headache, you have sore throat. So those are classical, variables that predict whether somebody has COVID or not. But also in the world of viruses, about 15 viruses can have such similar symptoms. So that is where the confusion comes in. It looks like loss of smell, loss of taste is one of the most unique symptoms you find in this COVID, SARS-CoV-2 virus compared to the other 14 to 20 respiratory viruses we know. But talking about how you respond to the virus, the host factor comes into place, and then the strain of the virus also comes into play. Depending on the person involved and the person's genetic makeup and how the person's immune system plays out. When the person is infected, the virus could, it begins by attaching to what we call the angiotensin-converting enzymes in the respiratory tract. And then gradually it descends to the alveoli where it has receptors that it can attach. So it's able to attach to the alveoli to the point where the very alveoli that enables you to breathe in oxygen and then breathe out, and then expand and coil, it can crash it to the point where you are unable to do that. So as the virus progresses from the nasopharynx or to the throat, descending down gradually to the lungs and to the alveoli, every stage of the virus comes with its own symptoms. So as it descends down, your symptoms begin to worsen.
Yeah, but Doc, I guess my curiosity is, Raymond seems to have experienced almost all the symptoms, including total breakdown, in a day, in a space of a few hours. Can that be that rapid?
Yes, I've seen and heard this and observed some people go through similar situations. Some occur in a short period of time where you have multiple things happen within a short period. And as I said, it's only the virus that was tested. Elsewhere, I believe Raymond will have what we call other biomarkers also tested alongside. There are many biomarkers that can tell you what is happening in real time in terms of the body's responses, the cytokines, the inflammatory markers, and many markers that plays out in the body. So for some people, within a short time, they can progress to severe disease, which means the virus gets the free environment to descend quickly to the receptor cells in the lungs. That's all the damage it can do. Take you to the ICU where you can't even breathe yourself to the point where you need a mechanical ventilation to support your body movement.
Yeah, and make that point, Doc. I'm going to bring back Raymond. Raymond, so all of this in a day, did you go to a hospital or you started medications prescribed by a hospital or you self-medicated? What was the immediate response after you saw the...
I mean, by midday, my doctor was suspecting that COVID could be one of the reasons why I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing. So quickly, he asked that we go and buy the drugs and the Zitro, I've forgotten the names of them. It was almost like two, what they call it, antibiotics. There was also
so in my case,
zinc part.
In my case, let me run by you what the hospital prescribed. I had azithromycin, I think it's called.
That's it.
Okay, and I had Zincovit, and then I was giving Value Pack, I think it is the vitamin C big tablets that you drop in the water to dissolve.
Yes, the big one, the one you have to drop in water.
And then there's another one that I was giving, I think is vitamin D. I had to check the name.
So I had
4 of them.
doxycycline or something like that too. And that looked to me almost like another antibiotic.
Yes.
Then when I consumed that around 6:30 p.m., I was getting better by 8 p.m. By my situation worsened again at 10 p.m. Can you believe that? The drugs basically worked for only 2 hours when I want to believe so. And by 12 midnight, I was back to the same situation I found myself at midday. A very terrible situation. Then they asked me to get 2, Panadol, the painkiller, and another painkiller, I've forgotten the name. So 2 of them, and I had to be taken that same night. And so by 4 a.m., I had taken the painkillers. By 6 a.m., surprisingly, I was almost like knew there was nothing happening to me until 10 a.m. again when I started experiencing all of these symptoms. So it was like a cycle. When I take the drugs for the next 2 hours, I'll start feeling better until the next 4 hours. I start feeling the same things I was feeling when it all started once again. Then I kept getting the assurance that don't worry. These ones are things you can manage if indeed it remains at this level. So feeling basically slightly weak, staying in bed, having some pains were not the most dangerous of it all. My doctor kept insisting that the slightest indication I get that I cannot breathe, that's where the signal is supposed to be. I have to rush to the hospital and I need to call him immediately. And that is where I had to deal with. So for almost 3 to 4 days, the cycle was the same. You take the drugs, 4 or 5 hours, you are fine. Then it's not good later on. So you take the drugs again. Then it looks like you're getting better the next day. Then it repeats itself throughout. I got the impression at that time that, okay, if this is how it's going to go, this is all that I was going to get with COVID. So for almost 5 days, I was in this cycle. Unfortunately, the 5th day, very early in the morning, around 5 a.m., mostly I do at 6. But this time I was feeling a bit more pain. So I did around 5 a.m. By 10 a.m., I started feeling the difficulty in breathing. Then, I felt it was because I had taken the drugs maybe early, so I slept. By 2 p.m., it didn't change much. And by 6 p.m., I could hardly breathe myself. It was as if somebody was deliberately constricting the space between my throat and holding my neck very tight and preventing me from breathing. Then there was so much heat in my nostrils. It was terrible. And I kept sweating. My temperature was way out of line. And that was where we had to rush to the hospital.
I see. So at this point, you were struggling to breathe.
Terribly.
Okay. And this happened on the 5th day.
Yes.
On the 5th day. So what happened when you got to the hospital?
So when I got to the hospital, by the time we got to the hospital, I had taken the drugs before we went to the hospital. So my temperature actually improved a little bit when we got to the hospital. But still, they were shocked that I had temperature. And this was Nyaho with other people, with other emergencies, and they took me straight to the emergency place. When I told them I couldn't breathe, there was this young doctor. She looks foreign. All that she did quickly was that they should bring me oxygen.
Okay, Raymond,
I should sit down. I shouldn't move.
Pause and describe this for me. You said you couldn't breathe. So before they gave you help, oxygen, what were you doing? Were you breathing to your mouth, to your nose, or what was it?
So I had opened my mouth. And I was struggling to breathe. So it's not, in fact, because if you cannot breathe, you try to force in more air into your system. I thought my nostrils were not doing the work properly. So I was trying to use my mouth to breathe in. So I basically had opened my mouth very wide and tried to force air down my throat. But I could feel a pushback. I could feel I'm not getting as much air down the throat as supposed to be. And because I was weak, it was compounding the problem. It's as if I need more energy to be able to push the air down the throat. And I could feel deeply within me that this air is not going where it's supposed to go, or a very small amount of it is getting where it's supposed to get. So that's how difficult it is. It was as if you're in a tube where there's very limited supply of air. You open your mouth and still the amount of air you expect down your throat was not going down.
Yeah. I mean, Ms. Samifor Singh, so you said you also had a struggle with breathing. Was yours as severe as Raymond's?
Yes, I think we had quite a lot in common as well. For me, the thing is, when I lie down, I feel perfectly normal. The moment I get up, say, to go to the bathroom or I want to go and take a bath, then I start feeling that shortness of breath. It's like I've been running for, like I said, 30 minutes. It's so severe. So what would take you about 5 seconds would take me about maybe 2-3 minutes. I had to walk really, really slowly to go to the bathroom. And even when I was taking my bath, now, because of the shortness of breath, you know, when you are using a shower, you can go under the shower for some time and all that. I couldn't even do it for 5 seconds because I felt like I was suffocating. It was that bad. And the moment I bent down to even like wash my legs and all that, I start coughing so badly. So it gets to a point I just give up and I just clean myself like that and go back into the room. So it happened for quite a number of days, and the doctors recommended that, when I wake up in the morning, try 9 o'clock, go sit outside, get some sunshine for about an hour, and then 4 p.m. in the evening as well to go sit outside for like an hour, get some sunshine as well. But what really helped me was the local remedy. I had to be introduced to inhalation with neem tree and methyl crystals. Now, when I started that, I started feeling much better.
Metal crystals.
Yeah, methyl crystals. Yeah, they are just crystals that you just drop into hot water. Drop like 2 of them, and it's like mint, and it makes you like.
Oh, is it what we call camphor? I think it's.
I think it's a bit different from camphor.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's something you can get at any good pharmacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you say you were doing
that really helped me a lot.
So you put it in water and then you add neem tree to it?
I boiled the neem tree, for about 10 minutes or so. And then the moment I pour it into a bucket, I then drop in 1 or 2 pieces of the methyl crystal. And then immediately I cover myself with like a blanket and I stay underneath for about 15 minutes.
Okay. And what did you experience once you did that? How did that improve your condition?
It kind of opened up my airways for me. Like right immediately, I'll feel much better. So it's something that I was doing about 3 times a day. Over time, I began to feel better. And also, my doctor made me get an oximeter as well. So I was using that to monitor my oxygen saturation in my blood. So every single day, I'd give him like reports, morning, afternoon, evening. So my saturation was still around 97%, which the doctor said was good. But the moment it drops to, let's say, 90 or something, then he would recommend that I quickly go to the hospital.
So did you actually ever go to the hospital?
Fortunately for me.
Did you actually go to the hospital?
No, I did not.
Okay, because you were stable throughout. I mean, I'll come to Israel shortly, but I'm want to run by Dr. Michael Owusu. Doc, we've had many local remedies. Samifor Singh talks about the neem tree boiled, and then he added crystal, metal to it, and then warms it, breathes it in, and helps it. Give us your scientific assessment of that. What do we know about this? Does it really work?
Evans, it's a big question that you're asking, and I believe that it's a question we need to ask ourselves how well we have explored these local remedies. There's what we call a pharmacological treatment, where you use some of our non-orthodox drugs, which are prescribed by doctors. They mention azithromycin and all the other doxycycline. These are traditional drugs that are prescribed with known purpose, with known principles of action. We understand their physiology and how they move and play out in the body. But then there are also non-pharmacological treatment. These are traditional things that we used to do anyway, even before COVID. Things such as steam inhalation, using hot mint or mentox and inhaling this to clear the airwaves to enable you breathe properly. People even drinking things like ginger, honey, and other hot water or other things. But when it comes to the local remedies, the neem trees and many others, there are many other compounds that people have talked about. The point is that when this COVID started, early somewhere in January, March, February, I understand the Chinese did trial for over 100 different types of some of these plants across. And they found quite a significant number that was working in them. In Ghana, is only one that we have learned now, which is being done by our colleagues in KNUST, where they are trying to see how to repurpose a known malaria drug, that they believe that is able to work against it because it has some antiviral properties, against hepatitis B. So they thought that this would be able to provoke antiviral response when it's given to COVID patients. So the point is that, yes, indeed, these are traditional drugs which have been used already. And people know, a lot of doctors understand that when patients use them, it's able to give them some relief. And some of them, it makes them feel better. But these are not written in any books. It's like unwritten things because we don't have the scientific evidence to back this and to come out confident to say that indeed is a treatment that can be used. And once again, we don't also understand the physiology, how the drug works. Some call the pharmacodynamic properties of the drug. How, if you take in the drug, what does it do to the virus? Does it block the virus? Does it attach to the surface of the virus? Does it boost your immune system? We don't know that. So you cannot find any document explaining how to use it. And for those of us who are scientists and other medical professionals, we have learned to condition our mind to understand things from principle perspective. We know drugs. We know this is the drug. These are the compounds in the drug. This is how the drug works. This is how it is absorbed. This is how it attaches to an organism. This is how it destroys it. So if you are prescribing, a doctor is prescribing, he understands what exactly the drug does and the contraindications and the side effects. But for these plants that are unexplored, nobody knows. So it is a big thing for us to begin to look at. If these things are working and we have evidence to it, then there's a lot of work for us to begin to put some documents and papers together to put out these things and to make recommendations for many people to use. So it's a question that I think many scientific community are asking themselves, what can we do to also come up with these things, document this, and make it more like legal and approved by the FDA for use by many people who are in this condition.
Very important points. Israel, you, like me, didn't have any symptoms. What were you taking for your COVID? What did you take?
All right, so I was given an antibiotic. I was giving the vitamin C, and I was also giving the zinc. Plus, they added the paracetamol. But I was advised that unless I had a severe headache, I shouldn't go in for the paracetamol. So I've kept the paracetamol away. But I've noticed that I told you, I really didn't have any severe symptoms. But in the last couple of days, in fact, yesterday and today, I've noticed that there's this headache that pops up. And it's like a trend. It started yesterday in the afternoon, around 3 p.m. thereabouts. Same thing for today. As we speak now, it's off. So it comes on, it lingers for about, 3, 4, 5 hours, and it goes away, which is the concern the doctors have spoken with tell me is something we need to look out for, because especially in the asymptomatics. So you may not have any severe symptoms, but there may be some after effects that you'd have to be mindful of. And there are some tests you also have to undergo I've done a chest CT scan, which came out fine. I've done some labs as well. I'm supposed to be doing some other tests. The doctors have told me I should hold on for a bit. But yes, these are tests I need to do, especially because I'm having these headaches popping up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that advice then to do those tests. I'm hitting the treadmill okay. I'm almost back to full fitness, what I used to do. I mean, this morning I added a few weights to it. I was still doing my abs. I thought I'm okay. I mean, I didn't need to do any post-COVID test, but I take your word for it. I'll ask Dr. Owusu shortly on that. Well, I'm going to take a bit. When I return, I'm going to be talking to Raymond and Sammy really about, Raymond was actually eventually in an ICU, and I'll show you his picture when he was gone, and he actually tells a story of almost praying that he goes, right? He posted it up. Sammy also has a similar story of actually praying the final prayer almost, and also what got them through it. We'll talk about that, and then of course I'll share with you my interaction with Raymond that got me alarmed on my 9th day in isolation. Stay with me. And thank you for staying with us on this special edition of COVID-19's havoc on a human body here on PM Express, the pandemic that is causing a lot of pain. We're sharing our COVID-19 survivor story, and a lot of you have been watching, of course, wondering, oh my goodness, so what I'm feeling might be COVID. Yes, it might be COVID. There's actually a strong case to be made for random testing. Right? If you can afford it, test. I mean, test. Even when you don't feel anything, test. Because my story is, I was perfectly okay until some other reason got me to test. If I had not had that reason, there's no way I would have known I was walking around with COVID. No way. And the thing I realized is, and Dr. Michael Owusu, it's important to clarify this, is that the earlier you spot the virus, the better your chances of actual survival. Correct?
Yes, Evans.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, and that is my story. And this is my story with Raymond. Raymond Akwa is with me, Israel Lai, and my Sammy Forsing. By the way, I want to show you Raymond's picture whilst he was in ICU. He put this up himself on Facebook, and he wrote a story there. Let's look at the picture of Raymond in ICU. That's Raymond. That's Raymond Akwa in ICU there. You know, I guess somebody else took this picture. Raymond, somebody else might have taken this picture whilst you were completely unconscious.
Certainly. I mean, this was, to be fair, better days.
Wow.
There were times that I was worse off than this. And the only way I can identify these were better days is because of the kind of breathing device I have on. This is the second briefing device they gave me. And I had to go to a third one and a fourth one. So obviously, the more the situation got worse, I was given bigger and sometimes more convoluted with all of those extensions connecting to a screen and all of that. And this was just to help me breathe later on when things have improved. So first, I was just given some small thing to put in my nostril. I mean, that was not a big deal for me in the first 2 or 3 days. Then it did not get better. In fact, for most part of my time there, I was really wondering why, and I'm sure the doctors were also wondering too, why the situation was not improving. Because virtually every day I received several doses of, if I counted them, for injections, I got almost 50 of them. And I was going through the bill from the hospital and realized that for IVs, drugs, and also the things I had to take in, which all constitute medical, doses that I was given, I received almost 58 different ones together. So those are the things that together actually made me better, but it was not getting better the first 4 days. It was the reason they had to basically keep on changing these devices so that I could breathe. And the most painful part is that when every part of your body hurts, and that's what actually finally became my problem, I could not move, and yet I could not breathe. So they forced me to sit up. And I was really sometimes even angry at them when they brought the drugs for me to take, not the ones that go through the IV, the ones that I had to swallow. It was terrible. Swallowing, it was as if I was being deliberately given something very dangerous to consume, because even opening my mouth became a problem along the line. And I felt it everywhere down the line, the kind of pain I had to go through. Finally, I didn't know how I ate, and I'm sure I didn't eat for the first 3 or 4 days. The rest of the days, I was only consuming fluids when they put pressure on me and insisted they needed it for the drugs. Then it was my 8th day there that I recall eating something else apart from the usual fluids I was taking. And that was how terrible the situation was. So in the first 5 days, it was really hell for me. And when I always was very happy when I was sleeping, immediately I opened my eyes, I realized I was going to go through torture, because you feel pains all over your body and it's not changing. And at some point in time, virtually every day at 2 a.m., I have some terrible cough, which comes with hiccups. So it starts by hiccups building in my system. That is very painful. And before it even comes out, then I'll cough at the end of it. And I had this device also basically tied to my lips in a way that I did not know whether I was coughing properly or not. So it was a very terrible thing.
And you tell the story. You tell the story on your page that you actually at the point was praying that God takes you.
So there was one night. There was this particular night that I think the way I slept, the device removed from my head. So around 2 a.m. or so, I woke up and I was struggling to breathe. Evans, it was very painful. For almost 15 minutes, I didn't know what I was doing, but I realized I was still almost like the night I got to the hospital, struggling deeply to breathe, also trying to see whether the thing has fallen by my side so I could lean over and pick it up. And let's not forget, for most of the days I spent in the hospital, I couldn't go to the washroom by myself. In fact, I didn't go to the washroom for most of the days. When I needed to go to the washroom, they had to carry me and put me on a wheelchair. And they had to bring to me mobile lavatories and toilets for me to use close to me. And it was terrible. The worst I could do was being carried to the washroom for me to, and sometimes I'll be carried to the washroom, but I cannot even remove my own shorts to be able to urinate. Because when I straighten up and try to sit up, it is extreme pain I go through within me. So this was a night I was still struggling to pick up that particular breathing device, which was lying by me, and I couldn't do that. So I had to lie back. So I came back to square one, struggling to breathe. Forgive me, but there was this small thing that if you are calling the people, if you want attention from the nurses, you press. I couldn't reach out to it. I was pulling up my hand, but I couldn't reach out to it. And that was the day I said, oh, today, dear, I'm convinced. I'm not sure I would last here. Because it was all of them coming together with the pain, with the struggling to breathe. Nobody, and I told myself, nobody was coming to my aid. And this was deep down, deep in the night. I knew that a nurse came around 5 a.m. And I knew that if I could press the bell, there would be somebody quickly coming to me. But I couldn't reach out to that. any attempt to move my body towards that was very painful. And I felt if I moved more, I'll be losing the small oxygen in my system. In fact, that was a conversation I had earlier with one of the doctors who said I should relax and that there is very little oxygen in my system. So the more I moved, I was going to be incapacitating myself. So I was just lying down there, struggling to breathe with all the pain. Then that was when I said a very nice Catholic prayer that, well, I know that this might be my very last time on earth. So it should go easy for me so the pain can end. Then I know that lying down in my own bed and with the pain subsiding, that was when I actually left the world.
Now, so that is a pretty scary story you just narrated. And here was me, having gone through my 9 days of COVID in isolation. And then on my 9th day, I started feeling very dizzy. Very, very dizzy. The whole world was spinning. I couldn't stand. Even lying down, I could feel the world spinning. Immediately didn't link it to COVID. Why? Because I have done 9 days of solid, fitness, right? In isolation. 10th day, something said, check with Raymond. If what you're experiencing, he experienced too. So I sent Raymond a message describing my symptom. And he said, oh, Raymond, you remember what you told me in the WhatsApp?
Yes.
That was how your started. And
yeah.
And you told me, I remember your text message. You said that's how yours started, and that yours started on the 5th day. Your dizziness started on the 5th day. And,
yes. All the other things had happened, but feeling dizzy was in fact, it was when I thought I was getting better. That's the irony of the situation.
Yeah.
When I thought that I was improving with the drugs and everything, that is when I would take the drugs and within 4 hours I'll be fine. Then later on in the day, it's as if I have been dosed or I have been actually intoxicated with something very strong.
Yeah, I mean, and that got me really alarmed. I started paying attention to my body. For 4 days after that, it was on and off until, of course, I tested negative. But Sammy, briefly, you also had your own prayer, right? You told me this morning about sometime you just wanted to see your son grow.
Yes. I had my own fear moment. That was when I was on one of those days, early days of the shortness of breath. I was doing the inhalation, and right after that, whilst I was doing it, I just found myself breaking down. And the thing is, it was me alone in the house because my wife and daughter had gone to my father-in-law. And the moment I felt unwell, I told them to just stay there whilst I deal with COVID at home. So I was doing the inhalation and all that. Then I was praying, that this should go away because it's the scariest thing I've ever experienced. And here I was telling God, my daughter had just turned 1. So please, God, let me see my daughter grow because I don't know I don't know how I'm going to make it out of this. And it was that scary for me. And the moment I started feeling better, I really valued the ability to just get up and go and pee. It's something we take for granted. And even yawning, being able to yawn. Here I was feeling sleepy, yawning and coughing at the same time because of shortness of breath. It was so scary, Evans.
Yeah, let's quickly talk about briefly post-COVID survival complications and how you're dealing with it. Raymond, very briefly, you've recovered, you are tested negative. Have you noticed any post-COVID issues with yourself? Very briefly.
So after I came home, I was supposed to spend a week or two, get back to the hospital. The only difficulty is that apparently my lungs still require some work. So I've been asked to see a pulmonologist to work on that because I cannot fathom how I am negative, but I can't walk 2 rooms without feeling extremely tired.
Okay.
And that was, in fact, even in the early days, I was almost like the time I was in the hospital. And the worst part is that even now that I think I have improved, there's a combination of some needless cough that comes along with getting tired after bathing, getting tired after trying to descend a single flight of stairs. And I have failed some exercise texts and all of that. I try to do some slight exercise and come and see me.
Yeah.
Just an exercise bike.
Yeah.
When I Handle like once or twice. I had to go and lie down for almost 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a painful part of not being able to get back fully to what I'm supposed to do.
And this is even after testing negative. And so COVID doesn't. You have all this period that you need to recover. You can go on. And Israel, you don't have any post-COVID, right? You thought about headaches, but that's gone, and you're watching this closely.
Yeah, so it's just about the headaches. But, hearing Raymond's story especially, and I'm particularly concerned I'll say that for us, we're really fortunate. We're fortunate that we have doctors we can call, and they can give us advice. But I get, because I've been dealing with COVID for a long time, dealing with COVID advocacy, I get a lot of people sending me messages. And people are having symptoms like malaria and the rest, and they think that they should just go to the pharmacy and get some medication.
Get tested.
I want to use this opportunity to advise these people that, look, you're better off going to test to find out what exactly is wrong with you, because it could be COVID, so that you could be treated as quickly as possible.
And remember what Dr. Makawusu said, the earlier you test, the better, because that could save your life. Because when you know it early, it's better to deal with it. Listen, gentlemen, I'm grateful that you joined. Makawusu, there's a lot more to talk about. We're going to have another conversation about vaccines, and you'll be on to talk about it. I hope you learned something from these experiences to guide your own path towards COVID avoidance or COVID survival. Enjoy the rest of your evening.